Today I'm diving into Mount Blade Bannerlord like never before. This isn't your typical playthrough. I'm embracing the shadows, playing as a ruthless bandit, a feared criminal, a merciless brigand. But here's the catch. To succeed, I must conquer a castle or even an entire city, and I only have 100 days to make it happen. And if I don't, I have failed. And this is where our story begins. In the city of Sargot, we're playing as criminal. And I start off by selling unneeded equipment for some extra money. I then head out, because we're looking for some bandits. I'm kinda unsure of who I want to team up with, as there's a lot of options. When you have sea raiders, forest bandits, mountain bandits. Speaking of mountain bandits, we actually got stopped by one of them and had to pay them a fee to release us. Then moving north of Sargot, there was a lot of forest bandits. After being stopped by one of them, I decided I'm gonna join the forest raiders. And I said I don't want any trouble, I just want to become a bandit like you. Which makes me neutral with the forest bandits, but makes me a criminal in the kingdom that I'm in, Vlandia. Now, I decided to find their camp so I could get some forest bandits to join my warband. It didn't take long until I found it, hidden in the woods surrounded by even more forest bandits. And so, I got some lads. And I had a lot to choose from. And so I inspected two of my choices in the troop tree, Bushwhacker on the left and Forest Raider on the right. I personally decided to go for Bushwhackers, and so I hired 19 to max out the warband. And then I went out and tried to look for some banditry that we could do. And didn't take long until we found a caravan, and after chasing it around for a little bit and getting some help from some fellow forest bandits, we were able to capture it. And so we head into our first battle against a Vlandian caravan. And here we get into a fight with arguably the best mercenary cavalry that you can get in the game, the Vlandian Caravan Guards. They have good armor, good shields, and a decently long spear and even lances, depending on what equipment they are running. And we also had to deal with some Vlandian armed traders, lightly geared men with some crossbows, which weren't too difficult. The main difficulty were of course the cavalry, but our units were well spread out, and we had a lot of ranged units so we could always deal some damage. And so we would just hope that we could take them out before they slowly take us out. Woo. Starting off with even odds, it definitely didn't end that way, and we actually got a victory, ending with some of the caravan guards fleeing the field. We had won the battle by using strategy, spreading out our units enough to make the cavalry less effective. And so we had done our first criminal act. But we weren't out of the woods yet, a nearby lord had attacked one of the forest bandits, and another group of our forest bandits had attacked some villagers. And so we helped out by killing the villagers, and then it was time for us to get out of there. We had gotten a lot of gear and a lot of riches from the previous two battles, but mostly from the caravan of course. And so we ran back to the hideout to get some more lads, as we had of course had a few casualties. After getting some more bushwhackers, we went to the nearby Battanian city of Pencanic and sold off our gear. And we made a nice profit of over 8,000 dinars. And then I wanted to head west to talk to some sea raiders, and that's what we did next. On the western coast of Landia, I scattered around, and after going more south, I was able to find what I was looking for. But now I was being chased by two lords. And so I did the only thing that could save me right now. We became friends with the sea raiders, and then I lured the lord closer to our fellow sea raiders, and we ambushed him. And so we have our first battle included the enemy lord. Our Sewer infantry went straight to confront the enemy, and I led my ranged units up the hill because I wanted to shoot down on the enemy. But we got ambushed by enemy cavalry. We got some help by some Sea Raider slaver cavalry, but we mostly had to fight the cavalry ourselves. Our Sea Raider allies could also easily be distinguished with their blue and black shields. And so anything that didn't carry black and blue, we would try to kill. I set up my archers and a line on the hill to shoot down on the enemy, while also trying to keep the enemy cavalry at bay. It did not take long for us to take down the enemy, as when our Sewer infantry had taken out the enemy infantry, the enemy cavalry started falling pretty fast. And so we had won against an enemy Vlandian noble lord. We had gotten some pretty good gear from the enemy lord, which we would either utilize ourselves or sell for more money. But it wasn't over yet. An enemy lord was close by, and we waited to lure him in, and then we ambushed him. The odds were so heavily in our favor that we were able to auto-resolve it, getting us another victory. And some more gear, of course. I then went to the Sea Raider hideout that was further down the coast, and I hired some Sea Raiders for myself. Then as we went further down, we met another Vlandian lord, and another battle ensued. This time also having some Sea Raiders on our side. I start off the battle by sending our few Sea Raiders in with our friendly Sea Raiders to help them in infantry battles, and I would keep my range units on the outside of the main battle, mainly to pick off enemy cavalry that would be skirmishing around. My later goal would be to of course take the hill and the high ground in front of us so our archers would be more effective. But first we had to take down some cavalry. After taking down some cavalry units and our friendly infantry had taken down the enemy infantry, we set up on the hill to take down the remaining enemy cavalry and to hopefully win the battle. After some tough back and forth fighting, with a lot of losses on both sides, the enemy starts to flee the field, and we had won yet another battle. And so we take the riches from this battle with us, and I decided that I wanted to head south. And so that was our next goal, and now we just had to sneak our way out of Vlandia along the southern coast, but before that, we got into a battle with some mountain bandits, and they outnumbered us. The enemy consisted of mostly infantry, with also some cavalry to support them, and all of them had throwing weapons. But luckily we did too. And so the first clash against the enemy would be with throwing weapons. I decided to keep our archers relatively close to our infantry to help screen against enemy cavalry. We were outnumbered, but I was hoping that our new Sea Raider infantry could hold their own and beat the enemy. Oh my god, brother. We were able to take down the enemy infantry, but we took some casualties of course, and now we just have to take down the annoying enemy cavalry. Okay, nice, and then we'll just go whoop! I should hit him. We positioned our infantry in a square and our archers in a square, separating them to make the archers more effective, sacrificing some of them in the process of course, but I was okay with that. It didn't take long until we actually won, and the remaining of the enemies fled the field. We took some prisoners, and we took our well-deserved gear, and it was back to our goal of getting down south. And after a few days of travel, we were now in Kuyaz, in the kingdom of the Azerais. Getting into Kuyaz, I sold off a lot of our gear, earning us around 20k, and I also upgraded my gear, plus now we look the part. I then went further down south from Kuyaz, and I talked to the desert bandits. I donated some loot, and I was able to become neutral with them. I then decided to hire some desert bandits, and I chose the desert recruits, because after inspecting their troop tree, they had the better cavalry, and they had some pretty decent archers. As I already had the infantry from the Sea Raiders, all I really needed was archers and some decent enough cavalry. I then also went through and upgraded all of our troops in our party, and then I headed to Askar, where I would use our newfound wealth to buy some horses to improve our movement speed on the map. I then went to tour around the Kingdom of Azerai to join any tournament that I could, because I wanted to farm some more renown and improve my combat skills. Let's go. Stop it, mate. He just flew into the wall. This guy's some insane blocks. Now, after these impressive tournament wins, I decided to accept the quest of a caravan ambush. And so we used a caravan to bait raiders to attack them, and then I would reinforce and we would kill the raiders together. This is our first battle where we are actually able to test our new desert recruits and see how good they are. So far their equipment looks pretty okay, with not the best armor, at least having a spear and a shield. After defeating the melee cavalry, I decided to hop on a camel to start to chase the horse archers, as they were starting to do quite a lot of damage to our units. After cutting off the head of one of the fellow raiders, it seems like the enemy gave up, resulting in a victory against these raiders and a quest completed, where we got paid and we got gear on top of it. We then got into yet another caravan ambush, and this time we had a hill to help us out. Our desert recruits were also highly effective against the enemy melee cavalry because of their spears. Shortly after we defeated the melee cavalry, the enemy horse archers immediately gave up, giving us a pretty easy and fast victory. A few days later of roaming the world of Calradia, we see a pretty big group of mountain bandits, and I decide, why not try? And so we head into a battle of 82 versus 89. My biggest concern was if my desert recruits could actually hold their own against some hillmen and brigands. '82 versus '89. We were actually able to deal with the enemy quite decisively. We had some losses, but I didn't really mind. This gave us quite a lot of gear, with a few legendary and masterwork items, resulting in a lot of money if it were to be sold. I also upgraded our desert recruits into desert warriors. I then went out to test our desert warriors and see how they will do in battle. I quickly realized that they are running around with glaives, and it seems that they also have better armor, but their shields seem to not be as good. The Desert Warriors seem to be a pretty anti-infantry unit, where their long glaives will give them an exceptional range against other melee units in combat, and they also have a pretty sturdy, heavy one-handed falchion as a backup. I was pretty happy with how the Desert Warriors actually performed in battle, and I knew that now we could actually take on a much tougher opponent, maybe even by ourselves. I went back to Kuyas to sell off some gear, to get some money back, and to buy some new armor, as I felt like it was well needed. I also hired a lot of new companions to fill multiple roles, as leader of infantry, cavalry, horse archers, ranged units, whatever was needed. Then at dusk outside of Kuyas, we ambushed another Vlandian caravan. Our Desert Warriors proved to be highly effective, although we had some casualties. After this battle, I was able to upgrade a lot of our Desert Warriors to Desert Coltsmen, making them into cavalry. I also hired some new Desert Recruits to fill in the gap. I then also geared up all of our companions, giving them a variety of armor of whatever they needed. I then spotted a quite interesting tournament where there was a curved blade to be won. And this was one of the easiest tournaments ever, where most of the weapons every round was just throwing weapons. And since my guy is quite proficient in throwing weapons, it was an easy win. After this tournament though, we reached Clan Tier 2, which will allow us to do cooler things like joining a kingdom if we wanted to. But before that, I contacted Knyaz Orlek and asked to marry Siga, and so I did so. We now had quite a proficient commander at our side, Siga being one of the more highly skilled wives that you can get in Bannerlord. After this, I talked to Sultan Unkid, the Sultan or King of the Aserai, and I asked to become a vassal, a part of the Aserais. And so on the 6th day of spring, 1085, the mob joined the Aserai Sultanate. And you probably also remember that we only have 100 days to actually capture a castle or a city, and we are starting to get close to the end of those 100 days. So I was hoping that me joining the Aserai would help speed things up. And lucky for us, the Aserai were at war with Vlandia, and so I went down to our fellow criminals, the Desert Bandits, and I made sure that we had enough units. So I hired 5 more, and then I went out into Vlandian lands to look for opponents, and it didn't take long until we found an enemy lord, Barakan, and we started chasing him. And before that battle ensued, I upgraded our units to make sure that we had what we needed, and then the first battle of the Aserai versus Vlandians started. We are now the ones to spearhead this war. I started with a pretty basic formation, just putting our infantry in the front into a shield wall, our archers a little bit further back, on an angle to help, and then our cavalry to just screen. And now we just hope that we didn't lose, and that we could actually win this first battle of this war. I decided to go by the archers and help them pick off any enemy cavalry that would try to kill them.
Riders, hear me! Horsemen, hear me! Attack now! Hear me! Foes down! Soldier! Arrow! Come on!
We are losing the infantry fight. We had lost the infantry battle, but we actually pulled through and we made a comeback. Our archers were able to snipe off the remaining Vlandian shock troops, and our cavalry, even though they had unarmored camels, were super efficient the whole battle. Now we took the enemy lord as a prisoner, of course, and we got a lot of good gear from this battle. But we weren't out of the woods yet, as an enemy lord was nearby and he was charging straight for us. And so I upgraded all of the troops that I could, and we head into our second battle. But this time, we could only rely on our cavalry and our new upgraded ranged units, because all of our melee units were either killed or wounded. Here I decided to charge in myself to help disorganize the enemy infantry. Our archers had been doing great so far, and I wanted to keep that up. So I would have to delay the infantry from reaching the archers. Our cavalry was also doing an amazing job, both disorganizing the enemy infantry and killing enemy cavalry. And it didn't take long for all the enemies to either be dead or fleeing the field. We had won, and that was a huge thanks to our archers and our cavalry's teamwork, because we had now killed 2 lords just by ourselves. Now back at Kuyaz, we put all these prisoners into the dungeon, and we go back down to our desert hideout to get some more troops, of course. And then I head further into Aserai to Sanala, and here I get some new armor and a new sword, a big cleaver that can be used both one-handed and two-handed. I then spotted a friendly army, and of course I joined them. And unexpectedly, a big Vlandian army has also showed up. And so we wait around for friendly lords to show up, but it seemed to be too late. The battle had already started. But Unked was close by, so I waited for him to get a little bit closer, and then we joined the battle. And this would be the biggest battle yet. 1,300 Aserai versus 1,500 Vlandians. Oh, I see. Holy shit. Okay. My frames are dying. I keep missing. Nice. This is crazy. Harried. 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 Nice. I was in the remaining wave of this Aserai infantry, and we bravely charged into the Vlandians. And we knew that our demise would soon be here. But the more kills we could get, the more successful the next wave would be. After falling in battle, it didn't take long until we actually won. Wow, we won. Nice. The enemy had fled the field, and so the big army heads up to the city of Sargot. And a siege camp quickly gets put up, but the enemy army waits close by to attack, but this time they were too slow, and the siege of Sargot begins. The enemy had catapults on their walls, and so I decided to lead one of the infantry groups to the enemy wall gate. I'd successfully been able to lead them up to the gate, and they were now doing a lot of damage. My goal being that they would do a lot of damage before the battering ram comes over, which would reduce the initial siege time and lessen the casualties that we would take, making it a decisive victory. Let's move up here. Oh my god. One of the catapults had taken us out, and now it was up to our troops to get through. But the same second that we had fallen in battle, the enemy gate had fallen down. So our men bravely charged through the walls, and the slaughter of the garrison begun. And the victory would soon be ours, with minor casualties. After this hard-fought victory came the election of who were to own Sargot, and we were running on a pretty high score. And of course, we win. And at the same time that we won the city of Sargot, the Vlandians offered peace. They had taken too much of a beating, and they wanted to end it before they lost even more settlements. And so, the peace with the Vlandians finally happened. And on day 91, we had successfully taken our own city, and we had achieved the goals of this challenge. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, press a like and comment and subscribe, as it really helps this video out and it helps me. And I'll see you another time.